Jeffrey Epstein, the shadow banker of the deep state. A Machiavellian analysis of power, money, and secrecy. It's widely acknowledged that Jeffrey Epstein's activities were deeply intertwined with intelligence operations, reportedly linked not only to Mossad, but also to other Western intelligence agencies such as the CIA and MI6, operating through a shared network of covert financing and blackmail. The public narrative presents Epstein as a sexual predator who used his connections to ensnare powerful men. But that story, while true in part, is only the visible tip of a much larger and darker financial iceberg. Epstein's true function was not merely that of a blackmailer. It was that of a financial conduit, a shadow banker for the world's clandestine elite. He acted as a sophisticated washing machine for illicit capital, enabling the movement of black funds between corporations, oligarchs, and governments, both foreign and American. Through his network, billions derived from the global underworld, arms trafficking, narcotics, human and organ trade, and political kickbacks were quietly laundered and reintegrated into the legitimate financial system under the polished veneer of hedge funds, foundations, and private equity investments. The financial web behind Epstein. Epstein's connections extended deep into the arteries of global finance. His closest financial patron, Leslie Wexner, the billionaire founder of L Brands, served as Epstein's entry ticket into America's elite circles. But the deeper ties were far more revealing and dangerous. Epstein maintained long-standing relationships with figures and families who represent the upper crust of the global financial order. The Rothschilds, whose influence over central banking and global capital markets is well documented, had direct and indirect connections through mutual acquaintances in finance and intelligence. Epstein was frequently seen in circles linked to Lynn Forster de Rothschild, who introduced him to prominent members of British and American high society. J.P. Morgan, one of the oldest and most powerful banking institutions on Earth, maintained accounts and private transactions with Epstein long after his 2008 conviction. Several of the bank's executives, including Jess Staley, maintained unusually close relations with Epstein, visiting his private island and allegedly engaging in questionable fund movements. Edmund Safra, the late billionaire banker and founder of Republic National Bank of New York, was another key node in the world of covert finance. Safra's networks, connected to intelligence-linked money movements in the 1990s, parallel Epstein's later operations. The overlap of high finance, intelligence, and criminal money is strikingly consistent across both figures. Even Bernard Madoff, the infamous Ponzi schemer, shared an eerily similar ecosystem. Both men thrived within the same shadow banking world, operating as instruments, not independent masterminds, in a system designed to protect itself. Epstein's funds, like Madoff's, likely served as one of many black holes where illicit state and corporate money could be buried, cleaned, and reborn. Intelligence, power, and the machinery of secrecy. Epstein's mansion in Manhattan and his island in the Caribbean were not simply dens of pleasure, they were data hubs. Every room, every guest, and every conversation was recorded. The material was not just for personal leverage, but functioned as a form of currency within the intelligence world. In this sense, Epstein was not acting alone. He was the broker between agencies, financiers, and black market operators who needed to move money and silence simultaneously. The raison d'etre of such a network is simple, plausible deniability. Intelligence services need untraceable funding for operations that parliaments and congresses could never authorize. Regime change, proxy wars, biolabs, election interference. Where do they turn? To men like Epstein, who bridge the gap between the underworld and Wall Street. The collapse and the cover-up. When Epstein was finally arrested in 2019, the world caught a glimpse of how deep the rot went, and how fast the system moved to protect itself. His death in a high-security prison, under conditions that defy logic and protocol, was not the act of a man seeking escape. It was an erasure. His demise was the symbolic destruction of a ledger, the living archive of how the global elite financed their empire. After his death, many institutions scrambled to sever their visible ties. J.P. Morgan paid millions in settlements. The Rothschild-linked social circles that once embraced him suddenly spoke of distant acquaintance. But the damage was done. Epstein had already shown the world that the boundaries between intelligence, finance, and organized crime were illusions, masks worn by a single organism that feeds on secrecy, leverage, and moral corruption. The legacy of the shadow banker. Epstein's legacy is not his crimes against humanity, monstrous though they were. His true significance lies in revealing how modern power operates through financial opacity. He was not a lone predator, but a functionary of the deep state's economic metabolism, a servant of a global cabal that launders the blood money of wars, drugs, and exploitation into the polished world of luxury, philanthropy, and political influence. In death, Epstein became what he always was in life, a symbol, a reminder that beneath the polite language of markets and investments lies a hidden empire where the wealth of nations is forged in corruption, sustained by complicity, and protected by fear. And perhaps that is why he had to die, not because of what he did, but because of what he knew and whom he could expose.